Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
It's quite a long statement. I don't know if...
You're going to read a statement into this deliberation?
Yes,
Okay.
I have to respond. Tonight is our opportunity as a board to close a difficult and painful chapter and choose to move forward, to meet the needs of our very diverse student population, to meet the expectations of parents and community members, and to continue to work together with our teachers and staff as we challenge ourselves to close ranks to create the academic powerhouse of Santa Clara County. We have a choice to make, to continue to bicker among ourselves and ignore each other's ideas and perspectives, and to continue to call for members to be recalled or resign, or to make a different choice, to reject this divisiveness and to do a reset, to reiterate our resolve to serve the learning needs of all students. But first, I want to turn my attention to the things I have done and how I feel about that. I repeat my public apology, which I made several times 2 months ago, starting immediately upon the publication of the documents in question. I am sorry for my inadvertent use of the public server in what I intended to be private communications to private individuals. I certainly did not intend any offense to anyone. However, the decisions by several individuals to attempt to widely publicize these documents created deep sorrow, hurt, and embarrassment to the various individuals named in these documents, as well as to me. So again, to my present and former colleagues, to the superintendent, and to his staff, and to my friends and others in the community, I sincerely apologize. Let me move on now to the present. The time that has passed since the publication of these documents over 2 months ago has given me the opportunity to engage in a period of self-examination. This has been a fruitful time of contemplation and spiritual refreshment with the support of several counselors, coaches, school board members in other districts, and attorneys. Furthermore, my deep engagement with my faith community from all over California has allowed me to put things into proper perspective and to experience a feeling of renewal and recommitment to my lifelong values. Let me move on now to the present resolution of censure. I want to be clear that nothing I say tonight is intended to diminish my prior apologies. Nonetheless, over the past 2 months, I've been the target of a carefully planned and coordinated public campaign designed to attack and threaten me as a public official, as an upstanding 23-year community member, and as a person with all the rights and protections that Americans are guaranteed to have. I've listened quietly and politely for the last 2 months as I heard people exercise their democratic rights to express their opinions, and I respect that. However, I also watched in disbelief as adults provided their teenage children with white dunce caps designed to insult and mock me. Caps that one parent in the audience assumed were Ku Klux Klan garb that horrified him. But now it's time for me to speak up. It's time to tell the other side of the story and undo some of the damage that what I will describe as a mobbing campaign has done, not just to me, but the damage that the mobbing perpetrators and their followers have done to themselves, as a growing number of people in the community are telling me. It is imperative that the entire community understands the maliciousness of this public campaign to humiliate me, not only for my sake and my family's safety, but for the sake of students, teachers, and staff, as well as parents and community members within this school district. It is imperative that everyone understand this process of attack and intended humiliation, because what has happened to me could very well be happening to you now, or it could happen to you in the future, no matter where you live or where you work, as I will explain. I'll come back to this issue a bit later, but at this point, let me address these specific points contained in this proposed motion of censure. My overall reaction to the censure resolution, I regret to say, is that it's filled with exaggerations, half-truths, and outright falsehoods. Taken as a whole, we can clearly see that the so-called censure resolution is at root a piece of empty, divisive, politically motivated rhetoric that people of goodwill must reject and dismiss. Because of the large number of discrepancies from the truth contained in this document, the complexities of some of the issues cited in the broad claims, charges, and accusations, I will confine myself only to a few selected issues in order to illustrate the extremely weak logic and confused and inaccurate statements that undermine the credibility of this resolution. In no way tonight am I saying that I'm describing the full extent of the exaggerations, half-truths, and outright falsehoods contained in this proposed resolution. I will go on then to place the situation in a broader perspective and suggest a path forward. Taking into account these factors, let us now move to consider several of the accusations in the resolution. The resolution numerous times mentions name-calling designed to publicly bully and embarrass the superintendent and trustees Benevento, Porter, Jensen, Rebish, and Wolf. This is untrue for several reasons. The documents referenced were never intended to be public, as they were specifically intended to be private and not to be shared with anyone. At no time, and I repeat, at no time have I ever bullied any of these individuals. All the documents which I have authored attached to this resolution were sent exclusively to one, and in a few cases to two private individuals and two board members. It was the district, the city newspaper, and another free mailer that is mailed to city residents that publicly promoted the dissemination of these documents. It was never my intent that these documents would be shared with anyone. There have been no instances in which I either privately or publicly bullied or designed to publicly embarrass any of these individuals. That is an outright falsehood, and the authors of this resolution, whoever they may be, have not presented any evidence of their charges. Point 19 as well as point 23, which repeats the same charge, goes on to claim that I made comments to sexually harass and intimidate former trustee Porter Jensen to the point of resignation. This is a curious charge because A, these documents were not made public until November 30th, and B, trustee Porter Jensen officially resigned from the school board a month earlier, on October 28th. Point 20 claims that I conspired and coordinated the Benevento recall campaign. This is false on its face, as I had no participation in the decision to attempt to recall President Benevento, and I was not involved in the drawing up or circulating of the recall petition, nor in any of the meetings of the parents group responsible for the recall effort, nor did I or any family member sign the petition. Point 22 claims that I have diverted the superintendent from the board's educational priorities. There's no evidence of this. This is empty rhetoric. It's totally baseless. Point 24 claims that I disseminated false information to the parent committee of Charter School of Morgan Hill. Again, there's no truth to this claim, nor any evidence of this. The resolution refers to a petition signed by 350 teachers, which is an inflated number, but the resolution does not point out that this petition was circulated on district property, at our schools, in other words, and during the teachers' work times, on December 9 and 10, just following the very same day, the announcement on December 8 by Superintendent Steve Batondo to all district staff publicized in emails after publishing them on the district website, and speaking about, quote, whatever action occurs to those involved, end quote. In other words, here's the timeline. On December 8th, Mr. Batondo circulates emails in question to all MHUSD staff. On December 9th, MHFT begins circulating the petition to ask Gerard to resign. Here is what one MHUSD teacher wrote to me on December 10th. Quote, I was approached by a fellow teacher today to sign a petition requesting to resign. I refused. Honestly, this whole thing is ridiculous. There are bigger issues than your damn email. I've got kids in my class that are homeless, and they're circling a petition over an email? Seriously, it's just a waste of time. I deleted the district email telling us because I just found it to be unimportant in relation to what is occurring in my classroom, end quote. The resolution also makes vague use of the term racist with reference to these emails, and it is also worth pointing out that the authors of this resolution ignore the intent of my October 14, 2015 letter to Mr. Batondo. Here's what I wrote in that letter. I noted on the agenda that the October 6th presentation on SBAC that Dr. Zavala was scheduled to do was a joint presentation with CIA Director Webb on SBAC. However, Dr. Zavala continues to play almost no role in board meetings, sitting silently while his assistant, whose only administrative experience has been as a middle school principal, consistently leads presentations. I'd like to hear Dr. Zavala's presentation, as he is not only the best educated member of our district office, but also one with 30 years of experience outside the limits of MHUSD who can look at these issues from a fresh perspective. Even though the numerous false charges already outlined should, in and of itself, lead us to reject the censure resolution, the remedies this resolution prescribes are equally, if not more, odious. Point 35 calls for the board to demand that I, quote, cease and desist from engaging in bullying, intimidation, and harassment of fellow trustees and the superintendent, as well as all administrators, instructional staff, and support staff of the district. This is an absurd demand for the board to make, because it presupposes that I've been doing these things, not one of which is supported by the facts or by the evidence attached to the resolution. This is direct evidence of the moral and intellectual bankruptcy of this resolution as a whole. Point 36 would strip me of being able to participate in various meetings with internal or external committees or organizations as representative of the district. In fact, there's been no evidence that I've caused any problems with any of these groups. As I reported earlier, I recently met with the Chancellor of UC Berkeley, one of my college friends, to create a possible relationship if the district will only work with our students to make it happen, which obviously they didn't. That will allow low-income students of color to get 3 years of summer school and year-round mentoring and STEM courses at either UC Berkeley, Stanford, or UCLA through the Level Playing Field Institute. I have a wide range of relationships through my work and through my self-funded Master's in Governance program with board members and superintendents throughout the state that I'm eager to tap into this year. This restriction smacks of pure vindictiveness and not of logic or reason. Point 37 makes the truly outrageous demand that, quote, for purpose of ensuring that there are no further disruptions to school district operations, David Gerard must receive prior written approval prior to meeting with calling or emailing district employees regarding school district-related business, quote unquote. Now, this has me curious. Aside from returning emails from the superintendent's executive assistant, just last week with Jim Correa, when my email password was not working, I've had 0 meetings, phone calls, or emails with district office employees except for the superintendent. I've made visits to open houses and special events at schools, where I've also always been warmly received, including this past Saturday, when I donated clothes to the Cervato Marching Band's fundraiser. The implication is that I've caused disruptions at school sites. This is truly insulting, as well as patently false. The censure resolution also makes reference to a, quote, public outcry demanding my resignation. It mentions 33 speakers having come to the last 2 board meetings. Most were either present or current teachers union members or belong to an ad hoc group called the Committee for Responsible Governance, whose leaders include people like Roger Knopf and Mike Cox, both of whom I respect. But now Roger Knopf was the very first person to step forward at the December meeting to demand my resignation, reading the statement said in part that, in his opinion, I'm a bully. Of course, he had no evidence to back up that claim, which is no surprise, because as we've just demonstrated, there is no such evidence. So in my opinion, Roger Knopf simply made an uninformed statement based on second or third-hand information. Now here's something else. The other leader, Mike Cox. Again, I respect him. He's one of the greatest philanthropists in the community, but no one's perfect. He was one of the first to call for my resignation. In Mike's case, he decided to make a statement by sending me messages on a social media site. In order to be perfectly transparent, I thought I should share Mike's messages with you publicly so you can get a better sense of the thinking behind this committee for responsible governance. Here's what Mike wrote to me. Mike Cox, December 5, 8:02 p.m. Parents, block the ears of your children, please. Please block the ears of your children.
Are you kidding me?
Here's what it is. You are an a-hole, right? With $2 signs. David, you're the worst person I ever met. You're a raving a-hole. Please leave Morgan Hill. Then, December 17th, I get this letter, again on social media. Resignation, how soon? You have no reason to be in Morgan Hill. I will buy you the tar and feathers to leave. It goes on, resign Mike Cox. After that point, I contacted the social media site security team to report this harassing behavior and had him blocked from being able to contact me again. But Mike Cox was not done. He was quite determined to continue his harassment. He went on Facebook and repeated his call, "Let's tar and feather David Gerard." I can tell you that as a permanently disabled person who does not have a colon or rectum due to cancer, to receive these threats at home on a dark December night is literally terrifying. When I reported to Morgan Life that I was being physically threatened and I urged them to refrain from their continual drawing attention to these matters, the publisher, Marty Cheek, and his editor, Bob Arobe, mocked me in their subsequent article, calling my letter to them bizarre. I would hope that we would consider a threat to a public official to tar and feather him, particularly a permanently disabled senior citizen as I am, to be a barbaric act. As I say this, I also want to caution everyone to avoid the kind of simplistic splitting of people into good guys and bad guys, and to recognize that each of us has light within, even if at times our behavior may hide it from your view. And at the same time, we must put all of these events into a bigger picture so that we can understand what is happening today and what has been happening for the past 2 months. As I said earlier, ever since the November 30 publication of the referenced documents, I've been subject to a malicious public campaign designed to humiliate me. It is imperative that everyone understand this process of attack and intended humiliation, because this phenomenon called mobbing is becoming increasingly prevalent throughout our society. And I wonder, if this has happened to me, is this any indication that perhaps it exists here in Morgan Hill, and may be very well a toxic part of our communities and our school district's current culture, which we need to root out? This is the kind of behavior that one of the things has warned me against. He told me he didn't want to see my name tarnished and have me wind up, quote, alone and beaten, which is the typical net result of a mobbing campaign. This individual, who's been an onlooker at these meetings so far, also told me he didn't want to attend the school board meetings where the speakers would be lashing out at me because of the, quote, the ugliness that would flow out of the meeting. And this is during times when I was totally silent and listening to people exercise their democratic rights. Quote, workplace mobbing is a destructive social process in which individuals, groups, or organizations target a person for ridicule, humiliation, and removal from the workplace, to quote the recent book, Overcoming Mobbing by Duffy and Sperry. As they say, the purpose of mobbing is removing the targeted individual from the organization. They go on to say that the likeliest targets for mobbing are those who are not organizational insiders and who deviate in important ways from the culture, structure, and leadership of the organization. As a member of the 3-member board minority, I can understand very well why I would be a target for mobbing. And perhaps if you have ever been ganged up at work, you might have empathy for what I've experienced for the past 2 months. Mobbing is not bullying. It is often far worse than bullying. Mobbing typically starts with the organization restricting the target from expressing their ideas. Note that many times I have been prevented from speaking or interrupted, as on the August 4th school board meeting, when I tried to present vital research data showing the potential damage to students, particularly Latino and African American students, who were moved from an elementary school to a middle school for 6th grade. Mobbing takes place within organizational or institutional settings and always includes organizational involvement. Again, remember the sequence. December 8th, Superintendent Patando's email to all staff with the reference to, quote, whatever action occurs to those involved, end quote. The very next days, December 9th and 10th, the actions begin to occur. The teachers union circulates the petitions within our schools during school time calling for my resignation. December 15th, school board meeting with the so-called Committee for Responsible Governance in the teachers union, classified union, and Mihalis speak to call for my resignation. In January, Morgan O'Life reported in an article that Cox, the author of the threatening emails just cited, had joined together with Mr. Knopf and several others to form a committee to write a censure resolution. Tonight, we have seen one of the results of this committee, the censure resolution. This committee claimed that for trustees to vote against the censure resolution, they would thereby be condoning the inappropriate actions of Trustee Gerard. Looked at from the standpoint of the letters written by Mr. Cox and the censure resolution that he has colluded with others to prepare and present to the trustees tonight, to vote for the resolution to censure would actually be condoning the physical threats made by Mr. Cox to Trustee Gerard, as well as the entire mobbing campaign, of which the censure resolution is just one part. To vote for this resolution would be to ignore the outright falsehoods and distortions and demagoguery contained in this resolution. To vote for this resolution would be to vote to sanction mobbing and ganging up on people as a legitimate practice within our community and district. And trustees, as you decide on how you're going to vote, I want to remind you about who I am and why I am on the board, because a few of the members of this committee have decided to engage in mobbing and are wondering why I'm here. So please let me answer that question, as it may influence your decision. I first decided to get involved in the schools during March 2012 when I was confined to the Stanford Hospital Cancer Ward for 23 days, following a 9.5-hour total proctocolectomy, the surgical removal of my entire cancerous colon and rectum. I was in severe pain, and the doctors were worried about my prospects for recovery. On the TV screen, I saw the horrendous reports of the disappearance of a Toronto sophomore named Sierra Lamar. As the days went by and the pain continued without end, I prayed and begged God to let me return to health so that one day I could somehow help kids in Morgan Hill. My recovery process took over 2 years, including 5 months in 2013, when I was on total parenteral nutrition 12 hours every day. That's right, I had no food or water for even 5 months. But I refused to give up my dream to do something for the kids of Morgan Hill. I struggled with all my determination to get well, even without food or water. I worked 2 jobs as a full-time organizational consultant and as the program facilitator of Leadership Morgan Hill. Gradually, I began to adjust being permanently disabled, and I started to explore what I could do for my kids. So, with this background in late 2013, I started reading Scott Forster's articles about the charter school battles going on in the Morgan Hill School District. My wife Miho and I decided to show up to watch a school board meeting in Britain, where hundreds of parents and teachers argued for and against. I was very moved by the mothers speaking Spanish, begging the school board to approve a charter school so that their kids, from their standpoint at least, would have a fair chance to succeed in America. I was quite surprised to see the intensity and harsh tone of opposition to these parents. I wrote a 2,000-word essay on this issue that the Morgan Hill Times published, and Miho and I continued to attend school board meetings regularly. Before I knew it, 5 different people, including 2 school board members, asked me to run for school board. I was stunned and at first refused, as I had never imagined I would run for public office. But once I decided to do it, I ran full bore, canvassing at the homes of over 14,000 voters from Brunel Road and San Jose de San Martin. I estimate that I talked to over 1,000 voters face to face, and as I did so, I learned quite a bit about our communities that you never read about in the newspapers. I listened to their hopes and their dreams, their pride in the schools, as well as in their kids. I also heard their complaints and their frustrations and anxieties. It wasn't easy to go out every day, neighborhood after neighborhood, to the homes of 14,000 voters. It's a very big and diverse district in every sense of the term. Because of my disability, many times I had to go home because I was in severe pain because of the almost constant diarrhea that someone with no colon has. But as I got to hear the stories of more and more parents, as well as some of the other community members who want to help our schools do better for our kids and teachers, I knew I couldn't give up, and I had to go back out there again. After 4+ months of door-to-door campaigning, I was elected, so fast forward to tonight. As for me, I'm going to continue my quest to bring every resource I can to every student and every family, the very best public school experience in Santa Clara County, a genuine academic powerhouse. I have the drive, the passion, and the skills to find these resources in places we haven't looked before. In the university system, in Silicon Valley, and within our district, among the many community members who up to now have not been connected with our schools, but who would love the opportunity to volunteer and fill the gaps we can't pay for. As our state finances become tighter in the coming years, these untapped dollars and people resources may mean the difference between perhaps retaining a key teacher or instructional aid, or keeping a special service or program afloat, or increasing our career technical education offerings, or having a summer school. And I'm going to continue to listen to the concerns of parents who feel they're not being heard, such as recently the San Martin Gwyn DMA parents, dads who want restroom facilities for their daughters who play softball, or moms who express concern about PA programs. And not just to listen to concerns, but to have the courage to work with others to come up with solutions. Tasks build relationships, and I can't do any of these things alone. I'm seeking partners among my fellow trustees, among our teachers, our parents, and our community members. Working on common tasks like these will build stronger relationships. Let's reach out to each other and work together. Maybe it won't be easy at first. Maybe it won't sell as much advertising in the local papers. but our kids and their parents will be the winners. Let's take the next step, let's take the first step forward by rejecting the censure resolution. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me tonight.
Because whenever I start the vote, you say, oh, I have something else.
Okay, I have some questions.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Rodillo. We have a second. I haven't registered my comments. I think if the members of the public and members of the board would think back to some of the things that were written about me, some of the things that came from the podium about me, about my behavior, about my recall, about Facebook postings, about LinkedIn postings, about mobbing behavior, about political rhetoric, about sorry displays, and then listening to this and hearing you say something about an email regarding Charter School Morgan Hill, which is actually a published document, I have a copy of it, obfuscating the facts, and basically trying to redirect the attention away from yourself and your own behavior, and noting the fact that you had the opportunity to delay these emails with legal counsel vis-a-vis a Markin letter, which you are all familiarized with now. That all being said, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the censure, please say aye. Aye. We have, maybe I should do this by a recall. Trustee Rebush?
Aye.
Aye. Trustee Borgioli?
Nay.
Trustee Gerard?
Nay.
Trustee Badillo?
Nay.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
And Evento? Aye. So, just like we've had in the past, we have a 3-3 tie. So at this point in time, the censure motion is denied. Thank you, everybody, for listening to that. We will now move on to the next agenda item, item number G2,